will start with Gandhi. We will start with again very important thinker, Gandhi ji. You all know Gandhi. Okay, if I were to ask you what exactly when I say Gandhi, what comes to your mind? Non-violence, okay. Peace, non-violence, freedom. Barrister, okay. Yeah, these are his principles that come to our life. Yes. So before I discuss Gandhi with all of you, Gram Panchayat, okay, democratic decentralization was his forte. I want you to acquaint with certain ideas why Gandhi, whatever, Satyagraha, even his Gram Panchayat, the way he led the masses, okay, non-violence, ahimsa, everything is because he believes in certain stuffs. And what are those certain stuffs? This we need to first familiarize ourselves with. Okay, so I'll start it, and I request all of you to please kind of any other thing, and why he is very in favor of satyagraha or peace or non-violence. Why not violent Marxist kind of approach he follows? Why? This we need to know. Why he is so much in favor of non-violence. He does not believe in loss of life. So that's a consequence. I'm asking you the action, the reason behind that consequence. I'm asking you the reason behind that consequence. No, violence again. What all you are saying is just a symptom. When he's saying these things, I'm asking you why. What makes him say these things? That is what I'm asking you. What makes him say these things? See, his morality, his ethics, everything. There has to be a reason. Like we have studied the different thinkers, so we know why they sound the way they sound. Okay, why they sound the way they sound. This we have seen. So that's what I'm asking you. Ki what makes Gandhi sound the way he sounds? So let us see that. Also, you can see this. Also, you can see him. So now I'll write something. If you want, you can note down simultaneously. Even if you don't do that, that would be fine. Not an issue. So let us try to understand why he sounds the way he sounds. So all those, Gandhi actually, see this quote, Gandhi is actually a religious person. This you all will agree to. Gandhi is a religious guy. He believes in goodness of religion, right? Like most of the religious people do. Okay. So religious person believe in we call God. And those who believe in God attribute certain qualities with God. What are those qualities? Omnipotent. Explain every omnipresent. What else? They believe in God. Those who believe in God, they would say that God is benevolent. What else? God is eternal. God is omniscient. Right? These are the traits. These are the traits of God. All of you agree to this? यही बोलते हैं ना that God is omnipotent. What is omnipotent? He can do anything that he wants. He is capable of doing anything. He is omnipresent. You are present in Hyderabad. I am present in Delhi. God is everywhere. Okay. Me and you can be present at one place. He is present at every place. Benevolent, very compassionate, very kind, eternal. Yesterday he was, today he is, tomorrow he will be. Thousands of years ago he was, today he is, thousands of years after he will remain. Omniscient. We know certain things, he knows everything. These are the traits that people associate with God, those who believe in God, right? All of you agree to this, I guess. Okay. The new student, what was your name? Where are you going? Priyanka, you agree with this? This is what those who believe in God believe in these such traits, that he can do anything. He is omnipotent, omnipresent, benevolent, most merciful, most powerful, most knowledgeable. Omniscient is most knowledgeable. He is eternal, Nirantar, right? He will never get old. Ajar Amar. These are the things that people associate him with. Now come to human beings. So the human beings, they are like he again believes that human beings are nothing but part of God. So they somewhat share God's traits. Okay, so you cannot be omniscient, but you can have some knowledge. You cannot be eternal, but you can be somewhere. You will be a little less compassionate than God who is benevolent. You cannot be omnipresent, you cannot be omnipotent. At times you may fail. So human beings are part of God, and so these traits in very, very small quantities will be shared by people also, very small quantities. Okay, the idea is how to elevate human being at the level of God. Okay, how to hit kind of bring human beings at the level of God. So Gandhi will become a reformist because every person is a part of God. So how can you hate a person whether he is an Englishman or an Indian? Okay, so better hate the sin, not the sinner. Is famous quote, because sinner does not know what is right or wrong. He is under illusion. So he's a Gandhi is a reformist because he believes that every human is a part of God. And when he has some elements of God, how can you when he has such certain traits of God, how can you kind of hate him? Okay, understood, all of you? I'm coming to it. I'm coming to it. How is it relevant to kind of his non-violence? I'm coming to it because that's why he would say, "Do not unleash violence. People should not be indulging in acts of violence." I'm explaining it a bit. So, because of his reformist nature, because of this very thing, he will talk about non-violence because he thinks that sinners can be reformed. Okay, he will talk about satyagraha. Forget British imperialist. He is against capital punishment. You all know capital punishment is death sentence. Even for the hardened criminal, he does not say death sentence. He is against capital punishment. Okay, and we are still having a date kind of debate going on regarding capital punishment, that whether this capital punishment should stay or not. So you can quote Gandhi that Gandhiji does not favor death sentence. Why? Because hit the sin, not the sinner. Again, direct corollary. Non-violence again, direct corollary. This is all his reformist approach. Also, Karl Marx would say capitalism is a sin. Capitalists are sinners. But Gandhi believes in trusteeship. Okay, and he encourages capitalists what to do philanthropy. So all these Birla Mandir, if you come to Delhi, you will come across Birla Mandir that was built by Birla, J.D. Birla, because on the advice of Gandhiji himself. Okay, it was done at the behest of Gandhiji. Right? So why? Because he believes that capitalists are trustees. Trustee means you are sharing the kind of what you call it, the wealth, and you alone are not responsible for your wealth. So however wealthy you are, there are people who have contributed towards it, because a certain farmer has grown crops which you eat, a certain domestic helps you with kitchen and household works. That is why you are able to go to your factory or your office and earn. So you need to share your that thing, you need to pay gratitude to the society. So engage in philanthropy. And you see today we are all these philanthropists are doing what is called corporate social responsibility, the likes of Warren Buffett and your Bill Gates. So again you see the relevance here. Okay, so and again Gandhi is against consumerism, and that is why he favors sustainable development. You know what is this sustainable development? That whatever resources you have, at least give the same quantity to your next generation. Whatever natural resources you have, at least give the same to your next generation. Okay, Bhagat Singh issue, I'm coming to it. Today is the event also. I've already defined it in Karl Marx. I'll see, try to understand. Try to understand. First question first. His capital punishment. He did ask Lord Irwin that please. This was second roundtable conference. Gandhi Irwin Pact. He did ask Lord Irwin that please forgive Bhagat Singh and everyone. Irwin said that we have already decided that we will forgive the political prisoners, but not those who are convicted of murder. So Gandhi said that he's a young guy, hardly 22, 23-year old. Please forgive him. He will not do such things. He tried to, but then Irwin said that this is something the judiciary would decide. I'm not from judiciary, but you all know Britain functions on parliamentary supremacy. So if this parliament says something, judiciary has to abide by it. So Irwin could have, if Gandhi would have. Now this is one of the interpretations of the many interpretations that history tells us. Different historians have different perspective to it, but still it's very subjective whether he would have, he was really in a position to do that. If he would have continued with his civil disobedience, maybe English would have done that. But then this is very very hypothetical. Now, ऐसा होता तो वैसा होता तो क्या होता? We don't know कि if Gandhi forced him more. Gandhi forced more of Irwin that you please forgive Bhagat Singh's death sentence. Then what would have happened? Because all we know from the documented history that he said once or twice, Irwin said that this is something that the judiciary would do. It's not in my hands. Gandhi kept quiet. Okay. Now we really don't know if why he didn't force. Again, no one can answer this. No one can answer this. His own stand would have been diluted. Gandhi is someone who does not believe in non-violence. So he would have been accused of siding with the one who has killed people. Okay. And Gandhi's experiment with violence is very, very, it's in phase. In 1919, non-cooperation movement, Chauri Chaura would happen. You all know Chauri Chaura? Do you? 22 policemen were burnt alive and Gandhi called off the non-cooperation. But same Gandhi will not call off non-cooperation in Quit India movement. Will not call Quit India movement because of violence. Okay. Same Gandhi will not call off Quit India movement because of because of violence. Gandhi will always abhor violence, but would ask the Indians to join the British in the two world wars. In Second World War, he would say that we should help England to fight the Nazis and fascists. Where was non-violence? Do you understand this? History is a bit cruel. Which Bose web series are you watching? There is a web series on Bose also. Good. I have not seen that. I have only seen the promos. Rajkumar Rao. Yes, I have seen those promos when it was about to be launched, but haven't really seen it. No, I haven't seen that, but I have seen the promos, as I told you. So yes, there are some points where you can catch Gandhi actually. And consumerism. Okay, I'll define consumerism also. Yeah, that's where his consumerism would come handy. That there is enough in the world for man's need, not for man's greed. Consumerism is again an offshoot of capitalism. See what happens today. A particular product is being launched, suppose a mobile phone, and that mobile phone will come on Flipkart for 5 minutes, and within 5 minutes all the sets are sold, and the one who has not bought it will feel deprived. So he will wait for the next day and he will open his system, the laptop, 10 minutes before, half an hour before the launch is about to happen, 10 a.m. Then he will sit there by 9:45. Right? So this is consumerism. What is there in a phone? You already have a phone. It's not that you don't have a phone, but you long to belong. Your feeling of deprivation. This is consumerism. The urge to surround yourself with things. Okay, all sort of shoppings people do. Kimberley is what? I don't know. What is Kimberley? Yeah, the desperation to be in the moment, and also the feeling that if I don't have a particular thing at my disposal, I'm sad. So you need a particular cloth, a brand to wear. You have all the clothes, but you still need that one brand, whatever it be. A pair of shoes, even a pair of glasses, a set of mobile, a type of house, car, maybe, right? A particular kind of watch, yeah, maybe. So this is consumerism. The man, he's surrounding himself with things, and all these things are as good as the next thing is launched. So the moment iPhone new version is launched, the old one becomes obsolete. Right? This is consumerism. Auction as in, we write a bit more. Please explain. Bidding. No, not exactly. Bidding is a commercial activity, then not. Yeah, that can be to a certain extent, but then we have much better examples. Okay, everyone understood what is consumerism? Any doubts here in this particular flow chart or sketch, whatever you can call it? If you want, you can note it down. So we will proceed now. Isko बढ़ा दूं फिर? I can move this slide. You all have made this because this will come very handy in understanding entire Gandhian structure. You see here, Gandhian thought. Gandhian political thought is a set of religious and social ideals adopted and developed by M.K. Gandhi, first during his period in South Africa and then later in India. 1893 to 1914, he was in South Africa. Okay, and then he came to India in kind of 1915 precisely. He came to India, and for 3 long years he was not involved in too much things. He was kind of observing. He was touring India, and in South Africa also. What happened? He helped the English in Boer War. Do you know about it? BOER, Boer War. English were fighting the native South Africans. So he arranged a kind of some medical facilities for the English, and English awarded him with Kasere Hind. the title of Kaisar-e-Hind. So he gladly took that. So when it was happening in South Africa, he was on the side of British, perfectly being aware of the fact that the two sides are at war with each other. So again, the interpretation of non-violence. And then when he came to India, okay, three blockbusters he gave before 1919. Can anyone name that? The three Gandhian blockbuster: Ahmedabad, Kheda, and Champaran. How many of you do not know about it? Please let me know. How many of you do not know about it? All of you know. See. I'll tell you. Not to worry. In Champaran, what was happening? That Britishers were uh, forcing the peasant to grow crops, and that crop was indigo. Now, Champaran in Bihar, such a fertile land. Yes, Champaran in Bihar, such a fertile land. So people were not fond of growing kind of indigo because it was actually a cash cross. Okay, it was meant to be sold, not to be consumed, which most of the families were doing. Okay, so Gandhi peasants were not actually ready to do that. And there was this Tinkatia system. The details you can study in your modern India. It would be little long and complicated if I go into that detail of Tinkatia system. Three parts out of the total part was supposedly booked for indigo cultivation. And once you kind of cultivate indigo, then you have to leave the land fallow for the next season. So in a nutshell, the peasants were at loss. So Gandhi came there, Rajkumar Shukla. This question was asked in your prelims. Okay, who brought Gandhi there? The answer is Rajkumar Shukla. So he went there, and of course Rajendra Prasad was also involved. And this Gandhi met the peasant, asked for a peasant inquiry commission to be set up. English said no, you go from here. But Gandhi insisted, and finally English had to agree to him. Next was there in Kheda, and then there was an Ahmedabad mill strike. Both these cities are in Gujarat. Now, Kheda, you know what happened? The first, I'll tell you about Ahmedabad. The plague, the bubonic plague had spread there, and peasants were made to stay there because the people said the landowner said that we will bring you kind of this, what you call, we'll give you extra bonus for it. Okay, but then they refused. Whatever amount of extra bonus was promised to uh, for the laborers to stay, that was the amount was least. So Gandhi went there and kind of increased that share. Something similar happened in Kheda, where the laborers were not willing to agree with what the mill owners, the capitalists were saying. So all these three places, Gandhi persisted and got what he wanted for the poor, for the laborers, for the farmers. So this made him, and already what he did in South Africa was known to people, some people, not everyone, to some people here. So what he did in South Africa, uh, actually, there was this kind of the marriage of Indians. The marriage of Indians in South Africa, if not done through Christian rituals, was not legitimized. So if the marriage is not legitimized, which means the children born out of such marriages are illegitimate. So that was a big insult, a big taboo. Gandhi insisted that no, even the non-Christian marriages should be legitimized, and he got it done. So already he was known in India to some people. After these three super hits, he became kind of more, people started to know about him. So then he will launch his further satyagrahas. Will you remember these three things? The initial three busters, people who were unaware of it. Anyways, you have to read it in your history. So nothing to worry about. Okay, can I move to the next point? This is there in your history also. So not to worry. Now, see the next point. Gandhian philosophy is not only simultaneously political, moral, and religious, it is also traditional and modern, simple and complex. So simultaneously, at the same time, he's being philosophical. His philosophy is political, it's moral, it's religious, and traditionally also it is modern, simple, and complex. So there is every element that you find is there in Gandhian philosophy. It embodies numerous Western influence to which Gandhi was exposed, but is rooted in ancient Indian cultural, harnessing universal moral and religious principles. Okay, so the thing is that even though Gandhi had Western influence, he was influenced by Tolstoy. He used to live in an ashram in South Africa. That was Tolstoy ashram, Tolstoy farm, Leo Tolstoy. He was also influenced by other thinkers like all these humanitarian thinkers there. But the root was always there in the ancient Indian culture, which harnesses universal moral and religious. He used to carry Bhagavad Gita. Do you know that? Gandhiji used to carry Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, with him all the time. And see the irony, he used to quote non-violence carrying Gita. The person who gave Gita to world caused Mahabharat. Right or wrong? Bhai, is there a better authority on Gita than Krishna himself? Who gave Gita? I know about Lord Krishna. And who was the reason behind Mahabharat? The mightiest war? It was Krishna, no other than Krishna. He makes sure, Krishna made sure that war happens. Correct? And when he was going for that last attempt, Panch Gram, right? The 5 village reconciliation process, then Draupadi came to him and she asked him that, why are you doing this? What about my insult? So what he said, I am doing this just for the sake of it. I know what will happen. He was God, he knew what will happen. तो गीता जिसने लिखी उसने महाभारत कराया और गांधी जी गीता को लेके चलते थे और अहिंसा की बात करते थे, right? So Gita has an impact on Gandhi, Vedant has an impact on Gandhi, Upanishads, even Christianity and Islam, and also Jainism. Same thing, that Gandhi will not agree with what you are saying, Aditya, okay? That may be your concept, but that's not the entire Gandhian concept. Now you see, Gandhi was both a man of action and a philosopher. Read this point. He never penned a grand philosophical treatise. When asked why this was so, Gandhi replied that he was not made for academic writing. Action is my domain. Okay. Now this Hind Swaraj is a very bulky volume, and let me tell you something. People often read Gandhi from books like India After Gandhi by Ram Guha. Do not do that. Okay. If you really want to understand Gandhi, Publication Division, Information and Broadcasting Ministry, Government of India, in 1999 has printed, I guess, 94 volumes of Gandhian literature. How much? 94. So all those things are said and written by Gandhi himself. He used to write a lot. He used to write at least 10 to 20 pages every day. Gandhi ji used to write 10 to 20 pages every day, and this he did for more than 10 years. Okay. So imagine the bulk of Gandhian literature which comes directly from the primary source, not from a Ramchandra Guha, but from Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi himself. Literature runs into several volumes. In Delhi University, I guess in your city also, there are degrees being offered. Gandhian studies is a different, altogether different faculty in arts department in universities. Center for Gandhian Studies, right? So that's the enormity of Gandhian literature. But he's himself accepting that I am not an academic writer. Action is my domain. Okay, that I tend to perform things, do things, rather than keep theoretizing it. Okay, with all of you, please tell me if you have understood. Is he like Hobbes? No, you don't compare Gandhi with Hobbes, because for Hobbes, state is everything. For Gandhi, state is not needed. I'll come to that part. It's not like Hobbes. Second point, Gandhi is a religious humanist. He believes in religion. We have already seen that. Okay, and he's a religious humanist. For the attainment of Swaraj, he has worked out certain principles that are woven into political philosophies by others. So he aims at Swaraj. Now the thing is, Gandhi never described his Swaraj. He never really defined what his Swaraj is. So it was left to the interpretation of his different followers. Okay, have we talked about Gandhi and Swaraj ever? Anytime? Have we? Please let me know. Okay, now listen. What happens is, India still consists of a cross section of people, different types of people, different background living here, right? No, not Vinoba Bhave. I'm talking about Gandhi. So the problem with Congress was that Congress was, when it was formed in 1885, it was said to be a party of microscopic minorities. The common masses of India did not associate itself with the Congress. So Sri Aurobindo we have to study Aurobindo also, in 1911 said that we need to bring Congress with us. Masses with the Congress. It is Gandhi who will bring that. How? He will not define his Swaraj. So imagine a woman living in rural area and his husband is a habitual drinker. He comes to the house late in the evening, eats and beats her up. Beats her black and blue. Now there is no feminists, there is no NCW at that time, there are no human rights. So no one takes cognizance of that act. Gandhi would say boycott alcohol. He would ask women to picket the liquor shops. So for a next thing, for someone who is growing Neil, you know the indigo, the Champaran movement. So for someone who is growing that indigo, Gandhi would say that no, you don't have to grow indigo. You grow what you want to. Okay, and then he would also suggest that do not give tax to the British if he forces you to grow indigo. Now, British succumbed to Gandhian pressure. The workers working in the mill of Ahmedabad and Kheda, which I've already talked about, they also are happy with why, because the Gandhi has given them what they wanted. So for a worker, the Swaraj would be that he gets adequate wage from the owner. For a farmer in Champaran, the Swaraj would be that he's not forced to grow indigo and he gets proper remuneration for his crops. For a woman living in the rural area of in any part of India, the Swaraj would be that her husband does not consume liquor and beats her up. Okay, understood? How he does not define his Swaraj? Let the people interpret it the way they want. Any betterment in your living condition is Swaraj for you. Did you understand? Please let me know. No, he did not allow the cause to be narrowed down. No, he is open-ended Swaraj. Let the people interpret it the way they want. No person. Next point you see. These principles of Gandhi are known as Gandhism. So Gandhism is what? Gandhism is actually the no, it did not cause chaos because there was already a situation of chaos. There could not be a better chaos than a worse chaos than British. It led to improvement in the life of people, and who was bringing that improvement? Gandhi was. He would ask to boycott the foreign clothes. He used to make a bonfire of foreign clothes. Do you know that? People used to come there. They used to burn the foreign goods, foreign clothes, the suits and the coats and the western shirts and pants, everything. And then he would say charkha and khadi. Have you ever kind of wore a khadi cloth? I'm sure you must have. Now it has become a fashion statement, all thanks to Modi ji. You go to a khadi store in Delhi, you will come across such a huge, crowd there before Corona actually. So khadi still is to large extent a cottage skill industry. Okay, earlier it was done on charkha. Now, of course, the machines have come and it has become kind of MSME now. No more a cottage scale. But the initial thing that someone is getting an employment. If you are wearing a khadi, a poor farmer, a poor chap with his family in the hinterlands of India is getting a livelihood. So why will he not talk about freedom? Because Gandhi has given him a means to earn his livelihood through, and khadi became a symbol of nationalism in India by Gandhi, right? So he knew the deficiency. So are you understanding it? These things are not in book. He knew the deficiencies where the defaults are, and he's providing the solutions accordingly. So what is Swaraj for someone who is working into khadi? That he is moving his charkha, making clothes, selling it, earning a price, and then supporting Gandhi for India's freedom. Yes, it has become official dress, all thanks to Gandhi. Everyone wears khadi now. Every other leader. In fact, leaders are very, very apprehensive of wearing designers, wearing fashionable. So give Gandhi credit for that. That leaders, however massive wealth they have accumulated, they will always appear publicly in khadi. It's true for entire India, I guess, right? Now you see the further points. Gandhi has arrived at the principle of pure love as a means to realize God. He would say that the absolute truth. Observance of the law of love is non-violence in relationship. Now he would say that there must be non-violence through which you can attain God. You can achieve God. You can be near to the God. Now, how would you do that? How is that possible? He would say Satyagraha. Now try to understand this. You will understand other things also. Gandhian strategy for struggle. It's his insistence for truth. Satya. Satya is truth. Agra is making a request. So Satyagraha is truth ke liye request. Okay. Satyagrahi should adopt the path of non-violence with no ill feeling towards anyone. So if you are doing a satyagraha against your adversary, do not carry the feeling of ill feeling towards your adversary. Why? Because hate the sin, not the sinner. The sinner is also a part of God. Okay. The sinner too is a part of God. That's why he will say change of heart. He will say change of heart. Because God resides within every individual is what he feels. Because everyone is, this is actually an offshoot of Vedant philosophy, what the great Shankaracharya said, Aham Brahmasmi, I am the Brahman. So you are the Brahman, then how can you be stupid? How can you be acting in such a criminal way? Okay, how can you be a murderer or a rapist or a criminal for that matter? So Gandhi would say that is temporary. Whatever a wrong person is doing, a person who is doing wrong act is temporary. Within he is Brahmasmi. He is a manifestation of God. So I must appeal to his that side. And I will undergo the hardship. Okay, you want to beat me? Okay, come and beat me. Here is the next cheek. You slap here, I'll turn this one. After this, you will feel guilty. Got it? I will suffer so much that you will feel guilty and you will change your heart and do what I want. What do you call this? This is Gandhian Ahimsa. You understood the concept or not? That I'll suffer so much that you will have a change of heart by my mere suffering. I wonder if we apply this policy to India's defense. How about staging a dharna outside Pakistan or Chinese embassy by the government of Modi ji khud baith jaye? Okay, pray for Delhi, pray for Kashmir with the pamphlets. So there was a question in your main exam, relevance of Gandhi, history paper 1. Okay, do not quote non-violence. Non-violence is not relevant the way Gandhi thought about it. Come on, our country goes for surgical strike and air strike and gives a befitting reply in Galwan Valley to the Chinese. And then you will say Gandhian non-violence is relevant. Aren't you contradicting yourself? And today also you have seen the videos that the army people are posting. They are openly saying that we have made all the arrangements for the winters. Let the winter come. We have made all the arrangements. Our logistic supply, our weaponry is intact in Kashmir. Let the Chinese come. Is this non-violence? Why not sit on dharna at the LAC? Right. Gandhi wrote a letter to Hitler. Do you know this? How many times Indian government have written letters to terrorists or war criminals? Which war? The world wars? No, not actually, because we have to discuss something more. I'll tell you why. His concept of Gram Swaraj, in last Mann Ki Baat, Modi ji said that we would have been Atmanirbhar long back if we followed Gandhiji's Gram Swaraj. Factually true, but then the kind of economy that it would have ushered, I don't know that would have been good or bad. So we'll come to it. He was not in favor of even keeping the military. Okay, and he supported British because they were fighting the larger evil as per Gandhi, the fascists, the Nazis, the Hitlers, the Mussolinis, the Taos of Japan. And you know what Churchill said about Gandhi? When there was this Bengal famine, lakhs of people died. And Churchill was the prime minister. And Churchill was said, these many people have died in Bengal because of famine. You know what he said? Is Gandhi dead or not? Yes, is Gandhi dead or not, he said. That was Mr. Churchill. Churchill was the prime minister when Second World War happened to England. So Satyagrahi should aim to change the heart of the person concerned, whom you are trying to confront. Next you see, struggle is against the evil, not the evildoer. Objective is to transform the soul of the evildoer through compassion. Okay, through invoke compassion, undergo penance, suffer so much that the evil starts to cry and becomes your friend, your dear friend, your brother, your sister, whatever. Okay, so change the heart of the evildoer, because basically he's a good person. So if you start suffering, the goodness within will get invoked and it will come on the surface, and then you will be dust. Okay, this is Satyagraha. That is why he would always say, do not hit back. This is the Gandhian non-violence. I wonder, see, normal mortals do not have this patience. I mean, how long will you tolerate if someone hits you? There is something called deterrence theory also. We'll study slightly the theory of punishment in later part of our class in days to come. Then I'll tell you. Now you see, passive resistance. He talks about passive resistance. Now this is slightly different from Satyagraha. See how. It is likely to be defensive in both its tactics and its strategy, and to involve forms of non-cooperation that embarrass rather than coerce. Okay. Passive resistance, like it means directly altering one's own behavior but not directly impeding that of the opponent. How would I say that? Like, just read this point. It's a way that refuses to go along with the opponent but chooses routes of action which tactically disengage with the resistor from the direct point of conflict. Now read the last 3 points again, the last 2 points and the new slide that I showed you. Please do that. Again, I'll explain it very soon. Defensive in both in tactics and strategy involves forms of non-cooperation that embarrass rather than you do not force the person. You tend to make him ashamed of what he's doing. What does that mean, Archita? If you hit one side, I'll show other side. He always used to do that. No, said who? Aditya? Is this coming from any authentic source? That India is holding responsible the local Chinese unit, not Levin Jinping? Where did you read this? No. News people would have done their analysis. keep doing. Government of India has not said any such thing that who has done it, who has not done it. You know what these analysts are trying to tell us, that if what you are saying, Aditya, is true, that means Xi Jinping has lost the control on its army. He has lost the control on his army. Is this what we should think? Anytime he was hit by police, Archita, he was always silent. He never responded. He used to smile. Aditya, what if you are saying is true? No, not like that. See, the government of India has not said any such thing. I am reading the Ministry of Defense briefings ever since the Galwan confrontation has happened. I did not come across any such document. In fact, India has been critical. Okay, India has been more critical than ever this time. Go by what the government says. Okay, go by what the government says, not what the media analysts say. They know nothing. Actually, they don't know anything. You see, you read, I'm like, let me educate these people. Such ignorance is peddled in media by the so-called experts. Leave that, okay? Unless the government or the army says that, army is a part of government itself, will not trust any other source. Now, how you do that? You suffer so much and you tend the alternate action, right? So if someone beats you, that why are you coming in front? Then you stay at the back every other day and do the same thing that you used to do while standing in front. That way, the person will be embarrassed that I have forced him to go at back, and he will feel guilty. Okay, appeal to the guilt of the person by doing what you think is correct and by avoiding confrontation with him. Okay, if someone says that you should not come here and engage in this farming, then you go to some long away, a far off place and do the same farming, but engaging in the same act but not confronting the person. That is passive resistance. Wow. So you are trying to alter the views. You are trying to appeal to the conscience of the person. That is passive resistance. But you are not scared of that person. That's why you will not stop doing what he has asked you to, but he will do this in a way that he feels ashamed. That is passive resistance. Okay. So if I'm sitting and I'm trying to write something, I've opened my fan, I've switched on my AC, and if someone comes here and says, "Get out of here, why are you writing all these things?" then probably I'll go on the roof in the sunlight and I'll do the same thing. I'll not stop writing. But instead of the comfort of this my room, I'll go out in the sun. I'm not giving up on writing because he has asked me to leave from here. He's making things difficult for me. I'll survive in that difficult circumstances, in those circumstances, and I'll do what I want to. This would be my passive resistance. Did you understand? Which movie? Chiranjeevi. There's this actor called Chiranjeevi. He has worked in few Hindi movies also. Praja Rajyam is his party, Chiranjeev's party. Yes. I got it. Chiranjeevi and Shankar Dada Zindabad. No idea. Which is this Kannada movie Super? That's actually Lage Rao Munna Bhai's remake in Telugu. Yes. Okay. It's the theme is same. Munna Bhai theme. Yes. That I know what Chiranjeevi did. Okay, I've not seen. Is it available with subtitles? Because I don't know Telugu. Okay, I'll try to watch it someday for sure. Okay, I should not watch. Okay, I'll not. Okay. One fine. I'll ask you people to recommend me some good Telugu movies, but of course with subtitles. Okay, because Telugu for me is Kalakshar Bhaspara. Sadly, that's the case. So I'll ask you people someday to give me some recommendations on good Telugu movies. Okay. So this is what passive resistance is. Now you see, it is a way that refuses to go this way, I've already discussed, along with the opponent, but chooses routes of action which tactically disengage the resistor from the direct point of conflict. Okay. Now Satyagraha. Objective of Satyagraha is the constructive transforming of relationship in a manner which not only affects a change of policy but also assures the restructuring of the situation which led conflict. That is Satyagraha. That you also tend to change the situation that led to the conflict. This calls for a modification of attitude and requires fulfillment of the significant needs of all parties originally in conflict. So if you are having problem with someone, you would insist on Satyagraha. You will insist on truth, and you will have this perennial hope, okay, everlasting hope that one fine day, because I am right and I am sticking to what I think is right, that person, the evil doer, will change. He will have a heart. He will have a melting of heart, and he will come to me. right? Here, no issues you have, I guess. Satyagraha patterns are highly similar. Now, Gandhi is a very big critic of modern stuff, critic of modernity. He criticizes modern civilization. He did not criticize modernity. He did not criticize modernity because it's Western in origin, but because of its negative consequence. It's not like he's criticizing because these things are done by the West, so anything that comes from West is an evil. No, that's not the impression, because it has negative consequences. He called modern civilization as satanic, as it degrades human beings to a level of human, or even worse, it makes people a shaitan, is what he would say. Okay, it makes people a shaitan. No, Gandhi is not really against passive resistance. He all his life he has done passive resistance only. Why? How come you are asking he is against passive resistance? What made you think so, Priyanka? I mean, where is he against passive resistance? Please tell. If you want, you can unmute your mic and speak also. No, no, no. He's not going with the opponent. He is attempting to change the heart of the opponent through passive resistance and satyagraha. Okay, Rekha, did you understand or not? He's not going along. He's trying to change the heart of the opponent. How? Through passive resistance and satyagraha only. Now he says that people became kind of worse than animals. Okay, when they follow modernity. Right? He equates imperialism and fascism and calls them manifestation of modernity. Modernism dehumanizes a person. Okay, leave the slide. The slide is gone. So only the slide maker is here now. Now listen. Same Marxist concept. Capital, greed, private property. Though he is not as critical of capitalist like Karl Marx was. Karl Marx would say that Marxist say that private property is a sin, capitalist is a sinner. But Gandhi would say that capitalists are the trustees, okay, and they need to do philanthropy. The latest fad of corporate social responsibility can have its root in Gandhian trusteeship concept. Correct. Now he says that because you are so much people, this famous quotation that there is enough in the man world for man's need, not for man's greed. What is your need? That you are hungry, right? You want to eat food, but you want to eat a particular Hyderabadi biryani. That is not need. That would be greed, right? That you want a particular Hyderabadi biryani on your plate is not a need, right? Again, he would say that we want clothes to cover our body, but I need a Armani ka suit to wear is not need, it's greed, right? So he says that there is no end to the greed, okay? And this is what the modernity has made us. Modernity is based on machine. Gandhi is against, he has criticized three things that we cannot do away with currently. Do you know the three things? And I'm giving you a hint. We cannot do away with these three things. Anyone who can tell me? Aditya, can you? Not corruption. How can we not do away with corruption? No, leave it. Aditya, do you know? No, no, not those things. Why would he criticize roti kapda makan? Yaar, come on. No, don't answer now. He has vehemently criticized railways, lawyers, and doctors. What? Railways, lawyers, and doctors. Now, can you think of any country, live alone India, that can do away with lawyers, railways, and doctors? He was a lawyer, probably that's why he criticized. Why only you are casting aspersions on doctors? Why not on lawyers and railways, Achita? I mean, there has to be a reason for all the three. Okay, I'll start with doctors. Gandhi was a big time naturopath. Okay, and his ashram in yes, doctors save life, but this is not what Gandhi thinks. His ashram in Gandhinagar, you know what he said? I'm unable to recall the exact range, but it was something like that. Go 4 to 5 kilometers from this place, and whatever material you come across, bring it. Only those material will be used to build my ashram. Do not bring anything cosmetic. Go to the forest, go to the ashram. This was actually a lush green area. Bring woods, dried leaves, some stones, and from that I'll make my ashram. And he actually did that. Okay. So he was a big time naturopath, and he did not believe in allopathy. Allopathy has side effects, we all know that. So he was more into Ayurveda. Try reading this book, Indian Summers by Alex V. Tunzelman. Heard of this book? I guess not. Alex V. Tunzelman, a very reputed historian. She has written this book, Indian Summers. And there she has given a ball by ball commentary of what was happening when Kasturba Gandhi was dying. She needed penicillin, and the son of Gandhi, he actually brought penicillin. Gandhi said no penicillin, and asked everyone to sing bhajan in the house. and she died. And then Gandhi says, isn't it beautiful she died in my lap? No, I'm not making these things. Tunjal Maan is a world-renowned historian. You can download this book online also. But let me warn you, this is a 1,000-page thick book. Do not be very ambitious to read it tonight. I mean, do these things after you are done for your mains. When you are about to appear for your interview, I'll give you a list of books to read. Okay, not before your prelims and main. So this is actually there in the answer to Tunjal Maan books. If you want, I can send a snap. But then why? So this was the extent of belief he had on naturopathy. You can call it horrible. Yes, currently it would be horrible. And Kasturba died because she was denied penicillin, which she urgently needed. The son brings it. He says no. Fills the room with devotees singing bhajans. She dies, and he says, "Isn't it beautiful? He died on my lap. What can be more beautiful?" So he hated allopathy because allopathy tends to have a side effect. Actually true. But then it's SOS, save our soul. Then how will you do Anulom Vilom to reduce it? Or an Ayurveda? That is for, leave that how is it non-violent. That is for root solution. Root cause of the problem is to be sorted. Maybe Ayurveda and yoga will help. But immediately, suppose a person has a heart attack, God forbid, a person is being hit by a bullet or some severe wound, you need some allopathic medicine. But he will deny that. Railways, okay, that's why he criticizes doctors, allopathic one, not the naturopath. Second, railways. Railways because railways were corrupting the people of his villages, okay, entire villages. Railways were helping the English to wipe the resources from what an English historian very correctly puts it, from the bank of Ganges to the bank of Thames. But then why blame railways? It's like saying India lost a match, so ESPN is responsible. The analogy would be same, right? India has lost the match, so let us blame ESPN. Why blame railways? Blame the British. Railway was a tool, right or wrong? Are you understanding it? Why he did not like railways? And also he said that people from cities are regularly interacting with people from villages and they are getting corrupt. They are being contaminated. Lawyers, because he thinks that lawyers are not speaking the truth, take money and fight cases which they otherwise should not fight. Okay, got it? All of you? I'm stopping it here. Remaining Gandhi will discuss tomorrow.